I'd like now bring on board our next speaker, Kevin Kwa. Right. So Mr. Kevin Kwa has a very interesting background, and he founded this company that, in fact, the first thing that caught my mind is TikTok. Right? And I'll leave it to you. I'll leave it to him to tell you what TikTok is about. He was in my panel last year in AIBotics, and I thought some of the thinking that goes behind TikTok is worth sharing. He's going to share with us data preparation, and more importantly, how this applies into the construction sector. So, Kevin, come on board. I'll leave you to the stage. Thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of TikTok. So a little bit more about myself first. So I'm actually a Singapore qualified lawyer, and I've also spent 7 years in the artificial intelligence industry already. So I can talk to you about AI, and I can also talk to you about whether it's legal or not. So you can come and talk to me if you want to know about that. So I'm going to be talking about my favorite topic today, which is data preparation, which is, of course, also what TikTok is all about. Now, all of you, and in fact, anyone who's ever worked with data at all will know that, or rather in technology at all, will know that clean data is going to be the absolute lifeblood of anything that you do. And I'll also talk about how it's very painful to get this kind of clean data as well. So if you think about it, drones themselves collect millions and millions of images in order to train really complex AI models, right? And then even safety visual analytics. I'll give you a really nice example later on. They need clean, accurate, and up-to-date data in order to keep people safe. And if you think about it as well, audio AI, if you go, hey Siri, I think a whole bunch of your phones will start to activate, right? All of this needs clean tag data in order for the audio AI to work, right? You can use that, of course, in many different scenarios. I'll point out some where you can even use it for safety later on. Now, with that said, what do I actually mean by data preparation? Right, data preparation is the process of getting all of this data cleaned up and ready for use by any kind of AI model. Right, so if any of you have ever worked with AI before, you will realize that actually a lot of the entire process, in fact, 80% of the work of any kind of AI model is going to go into the preparation stage itself. Right, before all of that, all of the AI can start doing all the fancy stuff, you actually need to get the data clean in order to input it into the artificial intelligence model, and that's how the entire prediction process actually works. There are many names for this. It can be preparation, it can be annotation, it can be labeling, it can be tagging, and then you can start to see where the name TikTok even came from. So, which of you recognizes this? How many of you have done one of these in the past, like 2 weeks? Yeah, what do you think this is for? What do you think this is for? Okay, it's okay. No one's going to tell me the answer. Okay, the first thing I always hear from people is that this is so that you can tell whether you're a human or a robot. What if I tell you that that's actually not really very true anymore, because a robot can tell what a traffic light is much better than you? Yeah. What this is actually getting you to do is to do the annotation and the quality control for self-driving cars, right? What else needs to know what a traffic light looks like? And that also explains why a lot of these like captures, recaptures as they're called, are actually getting blurrier and blurrier, because the robot is getting more and more advanced at identifying what a traffic light is, to the extent that unless it's like super blur, it's going to recognize what a traffic light is. So you're not actually helping. You're not actually proving whether you're a robot or a human anymore. You're actually helping to train an AI model. That's really important to know. So let me talk a bit about how data preparation is actually going to be used in the construction industry. In fact, some of the use cases now, right? The previous speakers, I've already gone through quite a number of these use cases. I'm not going to delve too much into it. I'm going to be talking more about the preparation of data itself to make these use cases functional. So really, really interesting use cases. You've got safety analytics, again, with computer vision. You can actually use it to see whether or not people are adhering to safety guidelines. You can even have robots running around your construction site to help you carry stuff. You can have building inspection using computer vision, right? Trying to figure out whether there are defects that are present there or not. And of course, nowadays, in fact, I think in Singapore, BCM mandates that your buildings need to be inspected every 6 years at least. Yeah, depending on whether it's commercial or non-commercial. Yeah. And of course, audio, when you can use it to be able to recognize whether somebody's screaming for help, whether or not some fire alarm is going off, for instance. All these are really important for safety as well. So at the end of the day, models that you use can all be the same, right? Whether or not you're using generative AI or whether you're using a large language model, right? But the data is going to be what sets your AI apart. That's going to be what differentiates you from the rest of the models out there. And in fact, the data is the hardest to get, right? So there are many different problems with this, right? You can either try and do it in-house, right? It's going to be really expensive and not very scalable. Anyone who's tried to prepare data before will feel this, right? Because if you've ever sat in front and tried to draw a bounding box by yourself, there's only so many that you can draw within an hour, right? So it's not very scalable, right? You also don't want to use your data scientists to do this because if you've ever hired a data scientist, they're super expensive, right? So you probably don't want to use 80% of their time doing purely just annotation alone. You can also try to outsource this entire process. And in fact, sometimes it's really inaccurate. It's very inconsistent as well. And what you're trying to do is get extremely precise data in order to make sure that your models are up to scratch, right? BuildTech especially, data is going to be extremely precise. And the last one is, of course, we all love Kaggle. It's a great place to get like open source data sets. However, if you actually go on Kaggle, you're not going to find that many construction site data sets, right? And also, the kind of limited data that you're going to see on it also, it often requires either relabeling or you might run into licensing issues where they're governed by some sort of Creative Commons kind of license where you would need to, in fact, like make your model free, which is something that, or you can't commercialize it, which is something you don't really want to happen. So this is a really nice example of one of the ways that you can annotate data and also what you can use it to recognize as well. So this is, of course, pictures of construction sites. I got this off the internet, so you can actually go Google for this as well. So what you're able to do is basically recognize the different parts of a construction site, right? And even down to color coding it as well, right? In this case, color coding is also to recognize the individual sections, right, of each of these construction sites. So it's really, really interesting to see what AI and computer vision can actually get up to nowadays as well. One thing that you might think is that it's really simple to just go hire 10 interns and I'm going to get them all to do my annotation, right? It's going to be generally a huge headache because everybody has different standards and there's so many things that goes on behind the scenes where you're trying to do your data preparation, right? So there's a huge iceberg. We actually made this image so that you can see it's not just about hiring and making the annotator so easy. No, actually, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. You need to train people. You need to create the training material. You need to do the quality control. All of these, very long process. Well, it can be, unless you talk to us. Yeah, so I'm going to go through 3 do's and don'ts of data preparation from our experience, right? So this is really exciting to me because I feel like a lot of people don't actually pay a lot of attention to these, and you only fall into this the moment you start data preparation on your own, and it's not very fun that way. So the first one is that you have to build really clear annotation guidelines. What are you trying to annotate, right? Whether it's one long list of stuff, one super long flowchart, or you have just very, very clear guidelines as to what you're trying to annotate, and you evolve this along the way as you come into more exceptions, that's going to be extremely important because the more complexity that you have, the more confusion there's likely to be. And this might mean that your accuracy of the data is going to be very low as well. That's something you really can't afford to have because the common theme everyone knows the phrase garbage in, garbage out, especially for data. So you do not want garbage data going into your artificial intelligence model. The second one is that you must plan for scaling, right? So what I mentioned earlier on was that you can't just hire 10 interns because the first intern might do it a particular way. The second intern might do it another way as well, right? So this goes hand in hand with having very clear annotation guidelines, right? When you have 10 people who are performing the annotation for you, if you have 100 people who are performing the annotation for you, right? This kind of massive amounts of data needs extreme consistency, right? So if person A does it a particular way, you need to make sure that person B, C, D, they all do it a particular way as well. If they all disagree with each other, then your AI is going to be extremely confused. The third do is that you need to know how to measure accuracy, and you must know how to do it very consistently as well, right? So what does it mean for your data to be accurate, right? Is a sound that I hear, is it a cat screaming, or is it a baby screaming, or is someone crying for help, right? So you must have a gold standard source of truth to refer to, and you need to be able to figure out how to track the accuracy of these annotations, right? So whether you're doing it in-house or whether you're working with somebody like TikTok to do it, right, the most important thing is to be objective as far as possible. If you can't decide one day whether or not your image contains like a crane or it contains like amount of dirt, right, then it's going to be very confusing for your artificial intelligence model as well. So on to the don'ts, right? So the first one is don't rush, right? So these data preparation processes take time. You want quality, you want good scale, right? You cannot really rush the annotations as well, right? Especially for preparation. So when it comes to any kind of artificial intelligence project, when it comes to any kind of machine learning project, make sure that you set enough time aside for the data preparation process. And of course, you're going to continuously refresh your data as well. So make sure that you always set the time whenever you're doing any kind of revision in order to make sure that the preparation process is adhered to. This one gets cut off a bit, which is ironic because I'm talking about not ignoring quality control. The most important thing, or rather the most important step at the end of any kind of data preparation process is that your ground truth will become meaningless if you don't have the proper quality control, right? So you need to make sure that your quality control guidelines are there as well. You need to make sure that at the end of the day, somebody understands what your annotation guidelines are like the back of their hand, right? And is able to guide you in terms of how the quality is supposed to be like. And the last one is that you have to not forget the people, right? So if you hire 10 interns and you put them all in the room and do data annotation nonstop for like 8 to 8, every day, they're going to be extremely bored. They might even quit on you. So in my previous life as an AI professional, we literally had people quit because annotation was just too boring, right? And that was actually part of the reason why we came out in the first place and set up TikTok, right? To make annotation less boring, more rewarding, right? So don't forget the people that are actually doing the annotation, even if it's yourself, right? Take care of your mental health. So a bit of a plug about how we're able to do this, right? So we're solving this issue by crowdsourcing the way that we're performing annotation. So we've got many different ways of making sure that the annotation that is prepared for you, the preparation, the data that is coming out for you is going to be top-notch, is going to be accurate, right? And we can do this either by crowdsourcing it, or we've got other methods as well if you have other like security concerns. And what's really interesting that if you work with TikTok is that we're transforming the way that everyone works on data, right? So we're able to work with the underprivileged, right? People with certain kinds of disabilities to give them opportunities as well, right? So if you work with TikTok, know that you're making an impact, you're making a difference as well. And this is how we're able to contribute back to society, even though you're working on artificial intelligence and data. Yeah. So we have a really interesting partner that we work with. They're called Invigilo, right? So I'm just going to talk about one of the use cases that we worked with them on, right? So they've actually specialized in safety analytics, right? And what we're able to do is to reduce the kind of safety issues, right, when we help them to annotate their data as well. So this is some of the stuff that they do. Like I talk about like cranes and detecting it. It's not fake, right? So these are actually really interesting because in real time they can detect whether someone is potentially wearing a helmet or not, right? And also where the cranes are. So you can actually see that just now there was a small GIF. You can see that even though it's moving, in real time you can actually detect all of these different things, right? And in fact, if I'm not wrong, the government is actually mandating, in Singapore at least, very, very forward-thinking. They're mandating that artificial intelligence should be used for safety monitoring as well. So it's a really exciting time because like everyone cares about the safety at construction sites. And just one more example of this one as well. You can actually see like the artificial intelligence tracking people moving along as well, right? And also showing you where potentially something might, potentially have like a safety incident. So really, really fascinating and a really, really innovative use of this. So what we do in this case is we make sure that the data is prepared accurately so that at the end of the day, you're going to catch most of the people here and any kind of safety incidents as well. Right, so I've gone through one of the case studies in this entire like data preparation sector. I've also gone through 3 do's and 3 don'ts. And if you don't remember any of the do's and don'ts, it's okay. You can come and talk to me after this, or I have my 2 colleagues here as well. Come and find us, and we'll tell you all about it. Right? And thank you so much for your time. Happy to take any questions.